he's not putting those two things together yet. He just sees Jesus as a threat. They want to detain him and eventually they want to kill him, but that's not quite yet. But I would expect to see Nicodemus here. What's up, guys? Welcome to the Snipe Life, where I look at creativity through the lens of Christianity, and I'm here alone. My wife just went to bed, so we're here diving into episode 4 of season 3 of The Chosen. Really interesting episode. I think everybody has so many different ideas about this episode and what could be coming and kind of what we're missing and different things, but there are some really interesting points that I want to kind of pick in and talk about in this specific episode. And so let's talk about the Pharisees. Let's talk about Shmuel, Shammai, Yanni, Yusuf, Nicodemus. Are we going to see Nicodemus? I don't know. There's some really interesting things that could be coming that I'm really excited about. But specifically, we know that the Pharisees at some point, right, are going to be looking to, take out Jesus to be able to, basically, they want to detain him and eventually they want to kill him, but that's not quite yet, right? We see that later on. And so if you look in like John chapter 11, we see the raising of Lazarus, and that's really what prompts all of these Pharisees and Caiaphas and everybody to want to kill Jesus. Now, there are some pretty significant characters that we're missing from the Bible that we haven't seen yet. Pilate being one of them, right? Which we know we're going to see in season 3. Caiaphas, the high priest, right? We haven't seen him. He's going to be really, really important later on. So there's some characters that we're kind of building up to. So we kind of go from Shmuel to Yanni, who's a little bit above him, to Shammai, who is like really, really high up in the Sanhedrin. And then I think the next person that we're going to be introduced to is going to be Caiaphas, which will be really, really cool to kind of see him in that role and see where things are going. Let's go ahead and play through this scene and kind of see where Shmuel is, see where Yanni is, and what their plan is kind of culminating to. Remember, at the end of season 2, in the season finale, we see them meeting with Shammai for the first time and really setting all of this up. So this is where everything kind of culminates to. So here we're in Jerusalem. If you didn't catch that change, this is obviously Jerusalem. This is the Utah set. And you can see Pharisees. We can see some temple guard. So obviously they're at the temple in Jerusalem. Now this, now I'm assuming here, but I'm almost certain that I'm correct. And that is that, this is the Great Sanhedrin in Jerusalem. So the Sanhedrin is a group of judges that would have been in basically every single Jewish city, right? You would have had small versions of the Sanhedrin. But the Great Sanhedrin in Jerusalem is a group of 72 religious leaders, basically judges, that would have held, office in this Great Sanhedrin, this court of judges. And they would have all been very important. Now, people that we know that are part of this are people like Joseph of Arimathea, who we haven't been introduced to yet, even though we think it might be Yusuf. And then also we know that Shammai would have been part of that. We know that Nicodemus would have been part of that. And so all of it kind of culminates in this big group of really, really important Jewish people. But here we finally see Shmuel for the first time in season 3, as well as Yanni right behind him. He seems very nervous. And here's Shammai, the same guy that they talked to in season 2. He's holding what looks to be a scroll. Shammai is very important. You can see Shmuel is extremely excited about this. He's happy about this.
Honored judges.
And again, that's why he opens the conversation with honored judges, because these are the 72 judges of the Great Sanhedrin.
I hereby propose a new decree that would extend to the 4 corners of the land of Israel and to any diaspora living beyond our borders.
A scourge of false prophecy has bedeviled our people and is diluting our faith, belittling our credibility, and besmirching our reputation. This must stop.
So again, this all comes from the conversation that Yanni and Shmuel had with him earlier on. the reason why he's kind of bringing all these things up is because Shmuel had brought them to him, and Yanni had brought them to him earlier on, and just said, hey, Jesus is doing all these weird things. He's claiming to be the Son of Man. He's claiming to be, like this big prophet guy. He's like this big rabbi that's just kind of like taking things on. And they didn't like that, right? Shmuel, remember from season 1, he says the law is God, right? But he doesn't recognize that Jesus is the one that made the law. He's the one that holds all of that, right? And so he's not putting those two things together yet. He just sees Jesus as a threat to the religion, right? He sees Jesus as a threat to the Jewish people overall. And so that's why he's acting the way that he's acting. He's trying to help people. He's trying to prevent people from following a false, Messiah, a false prophet, which he believes Jesus to be.
If any preacher espouses teaching not supported by known and respected rabbis, and especially anyone invoking the messianic title Son of Man from the prophet Daniel, shall be reported immediately to the regional Sanhedrin judges, if one is unrepentant.
So what he's saying there is, if anybody is teaching something that's non-biblical, that they deem to be non-biblical, or that someone that's not a prominent rabbi has basically given the stamp of approval of, then they're going to be charged, and they're going to be redirected to the regional Sanhedrin. This is the great Sanhedrin, but the regional Sanhedrin are all of the courts that are in basically all of the Jewish cities, right? Like Capernaum had its own Sanhedrin that we saw in season 1 when Nicodemus was talking to them. And he even talked to the Av Bat Din, which is basically like the vice president of the Sanhedrin. We see kind of the structure forming, and he's saying if anybody's doing that, then they need to be reported, and it needs to become this big thing. This is an edict that he's proposing to them in order for them to vote on. Now, remember, we know from earlier seasons that Shammai is a really, really big deal within the Sanhedrin. He is extremely focused in on what he needs to do, but he's also very popular, right? A lot of people like him, and a lot of people are following his teaching. Now, remember, everybody in the Jewish culture is really separated into two schools of thought. There's the school of Hillel, which is more soft and gentle, and there's the school of Shammai, this guy right here, who is more harsh and very straightforward with the law. He's to the letter of the law, right? Everything that he says is very, very straightforward with the law, right? For example, the example I always use is Hillel would say a bride is beautiful no matter what on her wedding day. But Shammai, he says that you shouldn't lie to a bride, right, if she's ugly on her wedding day, right? It's kind of two different ways of thinking, soft versus harsh.
Repentant. The high priest alone will adjudicate. All those in favor?
So the high priest alone will adjudicate is interesting because that means Caiaphas, right? So the high priest will come, and he will basically make he'll make a final decision on this person, right, that they're bringing into these regional Sanhedrins. So everybody voted yes, pretty much, at least all the hands that we could see. However, one thing that we are missing from this scene is that we don't see Nicodemus. Now, he's either here and they're not showing us him because specifically they couldn't get Eric Avari to come play the role or something like that. Maybe he didn't have time to come in, or they didn't want him to come in for whatever reason. Maybe they couldn't afford to bring him in. I don't know. But I would expect to see Nicodemus here, and some other people as well. Someone that we haven't met as well would be not Gamaliel, but his father Shimon would be the one that is actually in chosen canon here. So we know that Shimon would be the opposite to Shammai, who is the son of Hillel, right? So Hillel, Shimon, Gamaliel, and then we have Shammai on the other side that's kind of rival to them, right? We could see some other people that are involved in this, such as Saul could have been part of this, but I doubt it. He says that he was a Pharisee of Pharisees in his writings, so I don't know if that means that he could have been part of the Sanhedrin or not. It's really unclear, but we don't have full knowledge of that. So he doesn't say that he is, so I would guess that he's probably not, but who knows. Anyway, so we see everybody as they're clapping, and they're really, really excited, but something's wrong here, and Shmuel's about to find out.
Praise Adonai. So what now? What now? Listen to the applause. We won the day. Great work.
Work? It hasn't been work yet. Can we detain him? I'd hoped this was the final step to recognizing Jesus of Nazareth as dangerous.
The speech is the victory.
This is all political?
Not all.
So basically what Shmuel is realizing here is this is not a condemnation of Jesus specifically. It's just a condemnation of some of the things that Jesus has done. And so now it's not like this edict is coming out and saying, okay, let's go arrest Jesus. Okay, let's go detain him. Okay, let's go get this guy who is against what Shmuel wants. It's really just an edict against some of these specific things that Jesus has done. And so, now he's wanting more. He's wanting them to detain Jesus. He's wanting them to take him in and do all these things. But this guy, who we don't really know quite yet, I think this might be the scribe of Shammai, maybe. I don't think we've met him before. But he's basically saying like, hey, now we're going to have to wait. We're going to have to kind of see, what's going to happen, because now Jesus is going to have to, in their eyes, mess up, right? And break this edict in order for them to actually have any power to do anything.
Now, there is an edict.
What good is an edict?
It's almost as good as a law.
But we can't do anything?
We can wait.
Wait?
If this Jesus is as much as a threat as you say, we will hear about it, eventually.
Last season, we saw as Shmuel went through this opposite thing, right? Where he was... he almost felt like he had gone in too deep with Shammai, right? But now he's like wanting to go in deeper, and everybody else is kind of like nonchalant, like kind of like, oh, there's an edict now. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see where this kind of leads towards and what is going on with Shmuel and Yanni and where this goes forward. We know that we're going to see Shmuel and Jesus together, most likely at the feeding of the 5,000 after Jesus is done preaching there. I think that makes the most sense for him to be there from the behind the scenes that we've seen and from the trailer. Remember the very beginning of that trailer, it's Shmuel and Jesus speaking. And so it's going to be interesting to see how that all plays out. I'm really excited for Shmuel and his journey. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'm more excited for the people that are going to come to Christ or the people that I know are going to kind of be against Christ the whole time. A lot of people like want everybody to turn to Christ, and that's just not the case. That's not what happens. Not everybody comes to Christ. Even if they, know the truth, they decide to reject it and they decide to walk away. And I think Shmuel may be one of those people. I think Shammai may be one of those people. I think obviously a lot of the Jewish leaders are on that side, but then we have a select few who do come to Jesus, like Yusuf, I think is obviously going to come to Jesus, Jairus, Nicodemus, right? And so we get these very specific people in the Jewish culture and outside the Jewish culture. Like I believe Gaius is going to be one of those people, but I believe Quintus is not, right? I don't think Quintus is going to be saved. I don't know about Atticus. I don't know if he's going to become a Christian. I doubt it. There's just some of these pockets here, but so anyway, really, really interesting. I love the Pharisees. A lot to be talked about there, and I'm excited to see more of them as we go through the season and into next season. And even, as we go into the rest of the series as a whole, there's going to just be more and more and more about these Pharisees and what they're going to be up to. Hey, if you like that small piece of this live stream, the whole thing's like 2.5, 3 hours long, and you can watch the whole thing right now over on our Patreon. Really easy to sign up, $5, $10, or $25 a month, and this is the best way that you can help to support our ministry and our channel here on YouTube. So I'd love to see you over there. Anyway, see you on the next one. Peace.